Good evening, everyone. First thing first, is my voice audible and the screen visible? Yes. Yes. So today, let us try to analyze the previous year questions completely. If time permits, I'll just tell you how to write case studies also. Right? That is the plan that I have today. Now, yesterday we discussed up to this point, that is called moral thinkers. Now, next concept, that is called ethical conduct in public services. In the present times, when unethical environment is quite prevalent, individual attempts to stick to ethical principles may cause a lot of problems in one career. It may also cause hardships to the family members as well as risk to one's life. Why should we not be pragmatic and follow the path of least resistance and be happy with doing whatever good we can? Now, this is the question. Actually, this is the case study, and we have more or less copied that from here. Now, why we have given this here is, guys, is my voice audible or there is some external noise? It is comfortable, right? Yes. The point is, why we have given it here is, whenever you are writing some examples, what is the ethical dilemmas, right? In a society, yesterday we have seen one point of Tirukurul, right? Tirukurul said that when society is accepting something which is unethical, then that becomes a norm, right? So the same thing you can use in this also. That is, in the present times, this is the biggest problem. In the present times, unethical environment is quite prevalent. Individual attempts to stick to ethical principles causes a lot number of problems in one career. This is one of the problem of civil servant, or one of the dilemma of civil servant, because it is also leading to hardships of the family members as well as risk to one life. These are the problems for an ethical person in the society. So you can use these terms whenever you are supporting an ethical person and how he is going to face problems in the society, in the day-to-day society. Now the question is, why should we not be pragmatic and follow the path of least resistance and be happy with doing whatever we can? This is you can give that after seeing these many hardships or threats, then many people try to follow a pragmatic path and follow the least resistant path and be happy with whatever we have. This is the biggest problem, or this is how ethical people or moral people are turning out to be neutral or turning out to be unethical over a period of time, right? So whenever you are writing about what are the problems of society, what are the problems and what is the present status of civil servants, why people with young attitude or good attitude are turning out to be bad over a period of time, you can write these things because society is supporting them. You can use these statements for supporting, and you can also justify by using the Tirukurul statement. After all, in the present age of competition, we cannot afford to be left behind in the race of development, right? This is again, many people have this thinking. That is, in the present age of competition, we cannot afford to be left behind in the race of development. Now you can also link this to one point. If you do remember, I have discussed about the narrow perception of life. Whatever the problems that the society is facing today is because of the narrow perception of life. In this narrow perception of life, in the age of competition, we are going to be in the race of development, and our perception towards life is confined to development or for materialistic gains, right? This is how it is going to lead. I have discussed this question when I started discussing, I have discussed this point when I started discussing this paper, that is previous year paper, the first day, right? So here again, many people are thinking in this direction. So they are going out of the ethical path and they are going to live a pragmatic life. More or less, this is related to 1, 2, 3, 4 point of Tirukurul, 5. These are all the problems of the present societal status towards the ethics. It is understandable that we should not get involved in grossly unethical practices, but giving and accepting small gratifications and doing small favors increases everybody's motivation. It also makes the system more efficient, right? Again, this is again one conception about whether you want to be straight or whether you want to bend at times, right? It is understandable that we should not get, though we understand that we should not get unethical, grossly unethical, but at times small gratifications are going to do and small favors increases everybody's motivation. Now, many people consider that this is one form of persuasion or influence. If you want to influence someone, if you want to motivate someone, then giving small gratifications is one thing. Many people think that, and this is how, again, this is the mindset that society has. 99% of the society has this mindset, and then we start compromising on the values. It also makes the system more efficient. So they are saying that this is one conception, right? But remember, whenever you are writing, don't take this type of stance. Take a moral stand. That in any circumstance you are going to have that courage. That is called moral courage, to stand for the values, right? Even though it is a small gratification, still it is unethical, right? You should take those stands. These are all the challenges in the present society. So you can consider them again as a challenge in the present society. And this is the broad conception of corruption also. It is leading to corruption and bribery. Why it is leading? Because many people think that work will be done easily. In corruption, you can use this. There is heavy ethical responsibility on the public servants because they occupy positions of power, they handle huge amounts of public funds, and their decisions have wide-ranging impact on society and environment. As it is, you can use whenever you are writing about the ethical values or about the attitudes of public servants, or what is the foundational values of public servants. You have to use this thing. There is heavy ethical responsibility on public servants because they occupy higher positions. They occupy higher positions of power, they handle huge amounts of public funds, and their decisions have wide-ranging impact on the society and environment. This is the responsibility of a public servant, and that is why public servants are very, very crucial in governance. Hence, their ethical conduct is going to be playing a crucial role. So whenever you are writing public servant, about a public servant, think about that this person is the central around which the axis is entirely rotating. And then you can use the same wording while representing a public servant. And the above things, 6 things, I said they are challenges. In doing a good thing, everything is permitted, which is not prohibited expressly or by clear implication. In the context of a public servant discharging his or her duties. Now, what it is saying, just like the concept of liberty, right? Liberty is where the law is silent, right? In doing a good thing, everything is permitted, which is not prohibited expressly or by clear implication. Now, whenever you are writing about the ethical dilemmas of a public servant, whether to do a thing or not, if the law is prohibiting the civil servant not to do, then he should be abide by the law. If the law is not saying anything, then he has that discretionary capacity to go and use as per the situation. So this you can use whenever you want to overcome an ethical dilemma, or whenever you want to choose between law versus morality or ethics. Whenever you want to choose between duty-based ethics versus common good approach or ethical-based approach. Next, you can also use this. You can also use this in building your conscience or emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence comes into play, because everything in public administration cannot be written. Every rule and regulation cannot be codified and cannot be given in a doctrine. You have to use your own common sense, you have to use your own conscience, you have to use your own emotional intelligence to solve the problems. In all these things, it can be written. In doing a good thing, everything is permitted, which is not prohibited expressly by clear implication. Unless and until it is said that you cannot do it, you should not do it. Otherwise, you have your own discretion as a public servant to use as per the situation. Hence, you have to be highly ethical again. Because you not only hold the positions of power, you not only handle huge amounts of public funds, And your decisions are not only going to have wide range impact on the society, but equally, every law or every rule cannot be codified in a document. As a result, there will be many laws which will be to the discretion of the civil servant, and hence the civil servant has to be highly ethical in his code of conduct. So you can use these type of things. So these are three things that you have written about civil servant. The fourth thing that you can add is everything cannot be written. Hence, it is very important for the civil servant to be highly ethical. See how many points you are getting for the civil servant, foundational values, why he has to be ethical, right? Particularly about civil servants or power, people who are in power, right? So you can use all these dimensions and frame an answer. Accountability, individual accountability, collective accountability of public servants. So whenever there is a concept of how accountability is playing a crucial role in the public servant, they have to be individually accountable. Why they have to be individually accountable? Again, for all these things, right? That is what we discussed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hence, they have to be individually accountable, and they collectively, as an organization, they are also responsible, because you can link it again. Yesterday we discussed SC Gupta case, right? We can link with the legislature versus executive domain in the country. We, as a parliamentary system of government, the executive is always responsible to the legislature, and that is the fundamental principle of parliamentary system of government. Hence, collective responsibility is the most important thing. And the best example that you can give you is yesterday's example that Manogna has said, SC Gupta, right? So whenever you are thinking about accountability, think what is the meaning of accountability, and there are two dimensions. Just don't think plainly, think about two things here. Individual accountability, collective accountability. How a civil servant has to be individually accountable. At the same time, how he has to be, or his actions or his team has to be collectively accountable for taking a decision. Probity in public life. Probity is something which is inclusive of all good values. Your honesty, your accountability, whatever the good values that is there, that comes under probity. So they have not directly asked a statement about this, but what is probity, you should be aware of that. And more or less, whatever the foundational values are there, whatever the ethical values that are there, they forms under your probity. Ethical issues in international relations. Again, essence of ethics is even found in international relations and international funding. For example, if you have seen yesterday's news and day before yesterday's news, Taliban was requesting the United Nations and United States for releasing the freezed funds, right? So this is one thing which ethical issues were involved, whether to release those funds or whether not to release those funds. You can give those type of examples. Ethical issues involved in international relations. Corporate governance. Corporate governance, this is something which is related to ethics in private institutions, right? Now, international relations. Whenever you are writing something about international relations, never forget to study the concept of India's international relations from the perspective of Panchashil doctrine. You can use all the things in Panchashil, or the 5 principles for every nation or for any nation. And I said, whenever you are discussing about international relations, go and think on the global common problems. What are these global common problems? Environment, space, terrorism, nuclear technology, women issues and children issues, women and child, right? Space, environment, nuclear technology, women and children issues. So like this, you can think about global issues, and then India has certain good doctrines how to deal with other countries. The best example is Panchashil. Remember the 5 principles of Panchashil. You can use it interchangeably, right? And then if it is possible, deal like a Gujral doctrine also. Because again, this doctrine is going to play a crucial role even in your international relations. Anyways, you will be studying there, so study here also. So it will be helpful how to be, how should we deal with least developed countries, how we should deal with equal contemporary countries, or how to deal with countries which are better than our standard, right? So there is Panchashil agreement and IK Gujral doctrine. Both will be more than sufficient to deal with 3 types of countries. There will be only 3 types of countries. One is the least developed countries, the developing countries, and the most developed countries. How to deal if our country is a developing country, how to deal with a least developed country, how we should deal with our equals, that is the developing countries, and how we should deal with the most developed countries. That can be found in Panchashir Agreement, IK Gujral Doctrine with the least developed countries. But whenever you are writing, think in these dimensions. And another way of thinking at the international relations is, I already said this, start at the regional, national level, any problem, go with the bilateral level. But if there is any issue, go with the regional level and go to the global level. This is how another way of thinking. If depending upon the question, it depends upon the question on which they are asking. Last year they asked, if you are a defense secretary or defense personnel, how you will handle giving some defense equipment to a country which is going to misuse it, right? Think about the country at the bilateral level and then go ahead with the doctrines. It is going to help. Now, this is what is about international relations that you have to think on. International relations, strength, peace, and security are considered as strength, peace, and security are considered as the pillars of international relations. So ethics in international relations more or less revolves around these three things. How to secure your nation, right? Now ethics here is going to be quite different, right? In securing your national interest, everything is right. Next, in order to secure peace, you can go and have some treaties or anything. Strength, right? Strength is very important for both things, for ensuring peace and for ensuring security, right? So whenever you are thinking about ethics in international relations, again, think in these dimensions, that you have to make your country strong, you have to make your country peaceful, or you have to ensure that your country is big, strong, so that it will be in a position to ensure peace in its region. And then security is very important. You cannot compromise on the security of the people. So ethics is going to change. Again, the determinants of ethics here changes. The space is international relations. So in the international relations, you cannot apply the same principles that you are applying at the national level, right? If it is requiring war to go for peace, then you have to go. There is no other option, right? That is one thing which you think about realistically. Don't go idealistically, realistically. Right? Pragmatic approach. Have a pragmatic approach, how to deal with the situations, how to secure your national interests. Ultimately, by the end of the day, you are preparing for civil service. Hence, it requires to be a realistic outlook rather than having an idealistic outlook, right? The will to power exists, but it can be tamed and be guided by rationality and principles of moral duty in the context of international relations. Now they are asking, in the context of international relations, keep it aside for a while, but think about the statement. The will to power exists, but it can be tamed and be guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. The will to power exists, it can be tamed and guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. Now, you can use the same thing in inculcating ethical values also. It can be written not only in the context of international relations, but it can be written in the context of your national relations. It can be written in the context of your society. It can be written in the context of an individual also. So, because the will to power exists for everyone, even for me, it will be power. There will be power. For you, it will be power. There will be power. The thing is how you are going to use your rationality and principles of morality to use that power. That is the ultimate thing. So, this is called imbibing ethical values. Imbibing ethical values. If you do remember Napoleon Bonaparte's great actions are results of great passion. Those who endow them can do any act, either a good act or a bad act. But it is the moral principles which is going to determine the action of the individual. More or less the same thing is applied here. So Napoleon Bonaparte's words and these words are similar. In the context of international relations, you can bring Napoleon Bonaparte and you can write the same thing, saying that, okay, it is the moral principles on which your actions is going to be determined, how you are going to use that passion. Great ambition is the passion of great character. Yes, Kavya. Great ambitions are the passions of great ambition is the passion of great character. Okay. So you can use the same thing and write in the international relations. You can give best examples in international relations by comparing Gandhiji, Adolf Hitler, all the fascist rulers on one side and the moderate rulers on the other side, right? At the international level, bilateral relations between most nations are governed on the policy of promoting one's own national interest without any regard for the interest of other nations. This leads to conflicts and tensions between the nations. How can ethical considerations help resolve such tensions? Now look at this question. This was directly the previous year question. Now, what is the input that you are going to get? Whenever you are thinking about international relations, I said you start at the national level, think about the bilateral relations, think about the regional relations, and then go about the local relations. Now the question is about bilateral relations. Whenever you are going for bilateral relations, right, you will be thinking, if you are entering into an agreement, you will be thinking those agreements on behalf of you, or what interest is there for you, right? That is how people go. This is called realistic view. And there is nothing called immoral or amoral in this, right? At the international relations, bilateral relations of between most nations are governed on the policies promoting one's own national interest. This is what I said. Security of the nation is more important. In that security, people are going and having this interest on their own interest without any regard to the interests of other nations. Yes. This leads to conflict and tension between the nations. How can ethical considerations help to resolve? This is again one ethical dilemma you can write in international relations, right? In international relations, there is always one thing, whether you have to give importance to the national interest or whether you have to give importance to the global interest. But many nations, they take actions only on national interest, right? This is one ethical dilemma. And now how ethical considerations are helping to resolve such tensions? The answer for this is your Panchashil doctrine, right? People have come together, both the prime ministers of that time has come together, and they have evolved some doctrine saying that, okay, we should not go and we should not indulge in each other's war, in each other's territory. So those principles were based on ethical considerations. So you can exactly list all those 5 doctrines or the principles, and you can say that, okay, in this way we can sustain the bilateral relations very stable, right? Over a period of time, you have to write in these type of ways, right? Otherwise, you can use I.K. Gujral doctrine. It depends upon the country in which you are going to deal, right? That is the thing that I said. So international relations, there is one ethical dilemma, right? At the same time, the way to think about ethics in international relations, why to think about international relations? The first statement says why ethics in international relations are important. The second thing, the third thing says why international relations ethics are important. The first thing says why nations go for acquiring more and more power. And the second relation says that the same of Napoleon Bonaparte, right? This is the thing. You can write this. Corporate governance. Always remember one person. There is called Henry Ford. Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford always used to say a statement saying that if a business which is entirely focusing or which is solely focusing on money is not a business, it has to focus on the social good also. That is how he believed this. He always believed this ethical principle. A business which solely depends on money is not a good business. If you want to survive, you have to do help to the society. So you can use this whenever you are writing about private institutions. Corporate social responsibility, and how that is how he made his car so famous, right? Corporate social responsibility makes companies more profitable and sustainable. Direct word, you can use this in corporate governance. You can think about corporate social responsibility anywhere. We are going to study corporate social responsibility in corporate governance, and it makes companies to be more profitable and sustainable. You can use directly this thing. That is why we have given. By heart this and use this whenever you find this private institutions, corporate governance. Again, probity in governance, concept of public service, philosophical basis of governance and probity, information sharing, transparency in government, right to information, code of ethics, code of conduct, right? Probity in governance, in order to have probity in governance, you should have information sharing, transparency, accountability. In order to have this transparency and accountability, you have right to information. And then you have one more thing called citizens charter. You have work culture, quality of service. These are all the good qualities that a governance system should contain. So let us look at the questions. Probity in governance. Effective utilization of public funds is crucial to meet development goals. Again, the same thing they are speaking. At the public servant level, you have these things. Fourth option, right? Fourth question. You have these things. Position of power, you have huge money. Now at the governance level, you should know how to use them very effectively, right? Effective utilization of public funds is crucial to meet the development goals. Underutilization and misutilization of public funds, right? And then I said in my first class, whenever we are discussing for the first time this previous year paper, that what we discussed is it is not only effective utilization, underutilization, misutilization, but there is one more thing that is called misallocation of funds, reallocation of funds, reappropriation of funds. So these are the terms that you can use. And funding is one thing which is very, very important in governance. How the funding is done, how the funding is utilized. So governance, if you are thinking about good governance, think about funds. If there is no funds, what governance can be done, right? Sharing and transparency in government, right to information, code on ethics, code of conduct. Let us look at this. Today we find that in spite of various measures of prescribing code of conduct, setting up of vigilance cells, commissions, RTIs, active media, strengthening of legal mechanisms, corrupt practices are not coming under control. This is the thing which you can again write. Thus, problems in governance, right? Problems in public administration. This is one problem. Corruption is not coming under control. You can use the same thing in corruption again, right? You can write about the social conditions, how ethics is going to be in a declined path, how ethics are in a declined path in the society. You can use the same terminology, irrespective of the laws that is present. And then you can use the same thing while writing about laws and ethics. And you can also use the same thing when you are writing about the dimensions of ethics, right? One is consequentialism, non-consequentialism, and one is virtue ethics. This is the importance of virtue ethics. It is not important that laws are not just important. It is the ethical conduct or moral conduct of the citizens that is more important than anything else, right? Today we find in spite of various measures. So law is not just important, but equally is your ethical standards of the people. That is what the meaning of this question is, right? So you can use this, again, I said, you can use this in corruption. You can use this in social problems, how society is facing ethical demoralization. And you can use this whenever you are comparing whether law is enough or whether ethics should be there. And then you can use whenever you are discussing about the dimensions of ethics, saying that virtue ethics is very important because by the end of the day, it is not the laws, but it is the conduct of the individual which is going to define the success of the laws, right? Right information, official secret acts. Now see this beauty. Right information, they have given many. If there is any question on right to information, you are going to get the dimensions here itself. No need to study any book for right to information. Official Secrets Act is an obstacle for implementation of right to information. So then what are the challenges for right to information? One is your Official Secrets Act. RTI Act 2005 emphasizes transparency and accountability, right? This is the positive aspect of RTI. The Act has functioned as a check on the supposedly arbitrary administrative behavior and actions. Again, one positive aspect of RTI, one positive aspect, second, top right. RTI activism has affected the functioning of administration adversely and also possibly jeopardizes the genuineness of the applications which are essentially aimed at getting justice. Now, this is misuse of RTI, right? One challenge in RTI is your Official Secrets Act. The second challenge in your RTI is misuse of the Act itself for vested interest, right? Look at this third point. The right to information is not all about citizens' empowerment alone. It is essentially redefines the concept of accountability. For RTI, you can use this exactly to define, or again, this is just like your third, and this one, right? More or less the same. This is another benefit. It is going to increase transparency and accountability. It is not just about, it is also a tool for citizens empowerment. That is the thing which is extra here, because transparency and accountability they have mentioned. So RTI, it said that RTI envisages transparency. It is going to give accountability. By this, good governance is going to be formed. It is going to empower the citizens. It makes citizens to be participatory in the governance. Then it is going to be good governance. See the points of RTI, best points of RTI. Some recent developments such as introduction of RTI Act, media and judicial activism, etc. are providing helpful in bringing about greater transparency. Now there is a separate topic called transparency in public administration, right? For transparency, RTI is one thing, right? And it is going to redefine the concept of accountability. Now, in the transparency, what are the tools for transparency? One is your RTI, media and judicial activism has also helped in greater transparency. Media, you can raise both media, print media, right? Electronic media as well as social media. And judicial activism are helping greater transparency and accountability in the functioning of government. Now, this is one positive aspect that you can write about transparency and accountability, or you can write about the positive roles of media, the positive roles of judicial activism, the positive roles of RTI. This is bidirectional usage, right? However, it is also being observed that at times mechanisms are misused. Another negative effect is that the officers are now afraid to take prompt decisions, analyze the situation in detail, and suggest how the dichotomy can be solved, suggest how these negative impacts can be minimized. Now again, this question carries the same thing, that is, the second part contains this thing. RTI activism has affected the functioning of administration adversely. It is jeopardizing the genuineness of the applications, which are, so this is misuse of the act by vested interests. The same thing they are asking here. Mechanisms are misused. It has negative effect is officers are afraid to take prompt decisions. So this is the dichotomy in RTI. So here in the RTI, there are three dimensions for which you can answer directly. One is what is the goodness of what is RTI and what is the goodness of RTI and how it is leading to good governance. That is one aspect. The second aspect is what are the challenges in the RTI. Now, these two are clear. This is also one problem in your public administration or in your governance. There is what are the problems or what are the ethical dilemmas. This is one dilemma. RTI Act says that you have to give it, but that act has loopholes again, right? This is the dichotomy that you can see. So whenever you write about what are the present challenges of the so-called public administration or governance, then or what are the ethical dilemmas in governance? This is one dilemma. Your act itself has dichotomy. So you can write the same word, dichotomy, in the RTI Act, such as on one side it is going to have good values, on the other side it is going to be misused. Then it forms, see RTI, you can use all these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. More or less you can write a decent answer. Corruption, citizens charter, work culture, quality of service delivery, utilization of public funds, these are all forming. Utilization of public funds, misutilization, underutilization, misappropriation, reappropriation, right? You can use all those terms. Citizens charter, leave it for a while. Work culture, quality of service delivery. These are all important, right? Challenges of corruption. It is often said that poverty leads to corruption. However, there is no dearth of instances where affluent and powerful people indulge in corruption in a big way, right? Corruption is a problem of not only just poor people, but it is also problems of affluent and powerful people. So this is one dimension. And what is the misconception about, it is giving one idea about what is the misconception about corruption, right? One misconception is poverty leads to corruption, but more or less it is more affluent and powerful people who are indulging in corruption. That is one thing which you can write about, misconceptions of corruption. And the second thing is that you can notice from this answer is corruption is prevalent in all the sections of the community. That is either you are a poor or a rich or a middle class, corruption is more or less prevalent in each and every sections of the society. Corruption causes misuse of government treasury, administrative inefficiency, obstruction in the path of national development. Disadvantages of corruption. Kautilya has given this statement and you have to use the statement. misuse of government treasury, administrative inefficiency, obstruction in the path of national development. So here there are three things again, as said by Kautilya, right? Disadvantages of corruption. How to overcome the challenges of corruption? The only thing is, as said by Abdul Kalam, if a country has to be corruption free and become a nation of beautiful minds, I strongly feel that there are three societal members who make the difference. They are the father, the mother, and the teacher. Again, the role of family in inculcating values, and again in corruption, you can directly use. You can end your answers of corruption. If there is any question or case study on corruption, you can end by using this beautiful example, right? And then if there is any challenges in public administration because of corruption, you have to use Kautilya's way, right? Now look at this fourth point, a very beautiful point again. Non-performance of duty by a public servant is again a form of corruption, right? Non-performance of a duty by corruption. This is one dimension. Whenever you are thinking about corruption, we will think about only in monetary terms. But equally true is not performance of duties or being neutral when you want to take a decision, or when it is required to take a decision. If you are looking or if you are standing neutral, then it is going to stand as a corruption. So you can write it in the decision making of the public administrators or public servants, or you can write as another dimension. Whenever you are thinking about corruption, think in this dimension also. Officers has to perform duty. If you are not performing your duty, this is also one form of corruption. Hefty bribe for approving the tender, right? This is just, we have given here just for using the terminology. These days it is very common that hefty bribes are given for approving tender or to make our works done. Not only tender, you can use this, you can replace the term tender with the regular activities. Hefty bribes are being paid, or petty bribes are being paid for even small works, right? You can use the term interchangeable in this way. As a value conscious person, I do not want to give bribe. Whenever they ask like this, here I said, this one, ethical conduct in public service, right? There are many justifications under which you can say that accepting corruption is a good thing. But if the question is pulling your leg, never get down for your standards, at least for this exam.